The spirit of the North Coast. This is Redwood News at 11.
Good evening and thanks for choosing Redwood News. I'm John Kennedy O'Connor. Tomorrow is primary election day across California and here along the North Coast. But data shows early voting both across the state and locally has been low. As of today, only about 15% of the state's registered voters have cast their ballots. Here in Humboldt County, it's only slightly higher at 16%. This primary is unique because it's the first in California to utilize universal mail-in voting. Some analysts say it could be that many voters are waiting to actually cast their ballot in person on Election Day. And there are plenty of local races being decided in tomorrow's election. Here in Humboldt County, one of the decisions being made by voters is whether to re-elect embattled Auditor Controller Karen Dominguez. Karen, thank you so much for coming into Redwood News.
It was my pleasure, thank you.
Now, it's been a really tumultuous term of office for you. I think that's fair to say. So I'm really curious, why do you want to be re-elected?
Well, because there's still work to do. 4 years is not enough time to fix the amount of issues that we identified when I started my term. We need an additional 4 years, and more so because we've had to do it during a pandemic, which has really delayed our progress. Now,
the impartial grand jury report that was published last week really did blame you personally for what it calls the county's, and I'll quote this, the fiscal chaos. And it says the county has suffered $2.3 million in losses and has $9.7 million more at risk. And then a lawsuit following that publication was served against you, allegations of misappropriation of public funds. How has that damaged your credibility for re-election and what you were just saying about having more work to do?
Well, it's hard to tell because we don't really have any live polling in this county. In the bigger counties, you know exactly how voter turnout is looking, where people are leaning. This grand jury report being released the way it was and with the limited information that was used to generate that report did raise a lot of questions. And I think it's generated more interest about the function of the grand jury than it has really me or the content of the report. And it also inspired me to host a press conference and a town hall where I've received a lot of positive feedback from people and just appreciation that we're shining a light on these processes in the county and also the engagements with the grand jury.
Well, you mentioned that because upon release of the grand jury report last week, you did dismiss it as being politically motivated. But we interviewed the foreperson of the grand jury here on Redwood News on Friday, and the jury's impartiality is clearly unimpeachable. So do you stand by your accusation?
Well, I don't remember ever accusing them directly, but I've actually been very careful.
But you did say it was politically motivated.
Yes. I do feel like the timing of it is suspect. I do feel like it may be politically motivated, yes. And also, because I am the subject of interest of the investigation, I have been made aware that there's a rule for this grand jury that every single member on the grand jury should have been at the interview with me, and that did not take place. So it is hard for me to confirm that there was an impartial vote when I didn't get to interview with all of the grand jury members.
Now, the fiscal chaos that they've described, how do you react to that? What is going to be different in your second term if you're re-elected to avoid these allegations in the future? Well,
I don't really react as surprised because this is something I've already brought to the attention of the Board of Supervisors 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and to the County Administrative Office. There's been a lot of turnover in the leadership of the county, so we have a lot of new department heads and a new CAO from 4 years ago. So I do think this second term would allow a new opportunity to build better relationships with all of these new department heads. And we also won't be doing it during an unprecedented pandemic.
But obviously people are going to be concerned. I mean, these eye-watering numbers, there's $2.3 million already in losses, potentially almost $10 million more. So why should people accept that this is just a matter of process and things will be different if they re-elect you?
I absolutely understand why that can be the reaction of the people who are reading these reports and reading the headlines. However, I haven't seen any evidence that we have lost $2.3 million. I have only seen this report. The Auditor Controller, as you can imagine, would be one of the first agencies to know that we've lost any funding. But no documentation has been provided to our office by any federal or state agencies that say that. So as far as you're concerned,
these losses, you're not aware of them at all?
Yes.
Okay. Well, now, you said in a press conference last week, and I quote you here, "I hate to say it, but if you repeat a lie 30 times, people will start believing. What I have yet to see is any documentary evidence that is not based on a circular read." But the lawsuit that's been served on you personally is based on documentary evidence which is publicly available. So do you just stand by everything you've accused of being a lie?
Yes, I do, because it's more circular reasoning. That lawsuit is based on staff reports that are written by the same people who filed the lawsuit.
So what is their agenda? Why are they so against you?
This question came up at my press conference on Friday, and I wanted to be very clear that it's not about me personally. They don't know me. They don't know how I live my life. They don't know where I go after 5 o'clock. I think this is more related to the elected office of Auditor Controller. If you recall, the Board of Supervisors had previously presented to the public an option to consolidate the offices of the elected Auditor Controller and the elected Treasurer Tax Collector, with the intention of making it an appointed office under the direction of the board. That did not pass voter approval. Voters do not want that. They still have that intention, though. So if you listen to some of the commentary made by members of the Board of Supervisors, they've been very clear in their intention that that office should be appointed, right? And it's not working as elected, right? They're suggesting that to the voters, when really what they're saying to voters is we don't want it to be elected. It should be under the Board of Supervisors' control, and I disagree. So that's why I think it's more related to maintaining the independence of the elected Auditor Controller.
Okay, well, if you're saying that these figures are not real, you haven't seen this information, but they are eye-watering, and they will be worrying taxpayers, and they will be on their minds when they go to the polls tomorrow. So what processes are you putting in place to avoid those losses in your second term if you are elected?
Well, we are filling all of our vacant positions in the department. So during the pandemic, there's also been what's now known as the Great Resignation, where the county has lost a lot of staff and there's been a lot of turnover. Now we're focused on filling those vacancies and offering incentives to employees to stay working in the department and in the county. We're prioritizing written instruction manuals and policy references that we can provide so that there isn't a lot of loss of institutional knowledge. During the second term, we're going to be more stable as a department, and other departments will also have the resources available so that we don't experience the same delays.
Okay, well, Karen, thank you so much for coming in to talk to us here on Redwood News. We really appreciate it, and I wish you luck tomorrow.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to meet you.
In other news tonight, a mobile home trailer went up in flames northwest of Arcata, with the fire quickly spreading to other vehicles and a shed. It happened this afternoon in the 4000 block of Seidel Road. Arcata firefighters responded to a call of a vehicle fire, but when crews arrived on the scene, they found it had started in a trailer and spread to multiple vehicles and a shed. There were no injuries, and the fire's cause is under investigation.
So overall, there was about 3 or 4 things that were burning. Crews got on scene, got the fire put out pretty quickly. We had to call for mutual aid from our neighbors to bring in extra water tenders because there was no water supply out here. Currently, the fire's under investigation. Don't know yet why it's started.
Eureka police have arrested a 44-year-old local man in connection with a recent explosion outside the Bayshore Mall. Authorities today said 44-year-old Casey William Moore is charged with reckless possession of an explosive device. Investigators say he detonated a device last week at the Mall's parking lot that sent debris flying over 250 feet, nearly hitting a couple of people. The blast was heard almost half a mile away from the parking lot along the 3300 block of Broadway. Police say when they arrested Moore in Arcata, officers found additional explosives in his car. Meanwhile, an arrest has also been made in yesterday's stabbing that wounded a man at a Eureka motel. It happened around 2 p.m. Sunday at America's Best Value Inn, which is located at 129 4th Street. Police say a woman and a man staying in a room got into a fight over belongings when she pulled out a knife and stabbed him. 37-year-old Rebecca Taylor is charged with assault with a deadly weapon. The victim was taken to the hospital for treatment of minor injuries. A 2-car collision in Eureka this afternoon has left one person hospitalised. It happened at the intersection of Fairfield and Henderson Streets. Redwood News viewer Jim Wasetis was on the scene and provided this image of the crash site. One of the vehicles involved was a dark-coloured Jeep that suffered significant damage. A person in that Jeep was taken to the hospital with unknown injuries. A pedestrian was struck and killed early this morning while walking along Highway 101 near the Bayside Cutoff. The CHP says it happened about 3 a.m. on 101 northbound, just north of the Bayside Cutoff. The victim, who died at the scene, was struck by an SUV driver by a McKinleyville woman. The victim's identity has not yet been released. The CHP says the incident remains under investigation and didn't offer any further details. Meanwhile, the CHP is seeking help in locating this suspect in a recent Highway 299 hit-and-run that left a motorcyclist seriously hurt. Mark Raymond Sneesby is suspected of being that fleeing car driver, and a warrant has been issued for his arrest. Although the incident happened in Trinity County, the CHP believes he may be in the Willow Creek area of Humboldt County. With drier weather now in the forecast, how ready is CAL FIRE for this year's fire season? We'll have a full report after this short break. Please stay with us. Welcome back. CAL FIRE announced today that its Humboldt and Del Norte County units are ready for wildfire season. Officials say after completion last week of the latest academy, they are fully staffed locally. In addition to personnel, there are 14 fire engines stationed at fire stations throughout the 2 North Coast counties.
So we have a prioritized staffing levels that we meet, and so some engines or some stations end up getting downstaffed as the engines leave. And then as fire danger increases around here, then we'll move other engines in to cover behind those engines, either by bringing in CAL FIRE resources from other units that have available resources, or we'll use local government to cover our stations as well.
Have recent rains slowed the start of fire season here along the North Coast? For the answer to that question, we'll check in with Chief Meteorologist Dan Romano right now. Dan.
Yeah, you know what? We've seen some impressive rainfall from this most recent storm system. In fact, a good portion of the North Coast saw well over an inch of rain. Leader of the pack, Kooskie Mountain in southwestern Humboldt, they saw over 3 inches of rain. And up in Del Norte County, you too saw over 2 inches of rain in both Crescent City and in Klamath. And out towards areas away from the coast, Willow Creek, nearly 2 inches of rain. Now, we did see lesser totals around the Highway 36 corridor, as well as Eureka over at the National Weather Service, officially about 7/8 of an inch. But, you know, we take a look at the totals that we've seen so far for the year, and we're still dealing with the 3rd driest start to a calendar year here in Eureka. In fact, we've only seen just a little over 10 inches of rain, well, nearly 11 inches of rain. We should be closer to 23.5 inches of rain. So, unfortunately, even though we've seen more rain in June than we did all of February, which is a mind-boggling stat for some folks out there, you could see that, well, things aren't really looking all that great right now. And again, we're entering the drier months of the year, and we are going to see temperatures warming up. Now, there is a rain chance in the forecast. We're going to talk more about that coming up after the break. But until then, here's a quick look at the almanac.
Welcome back. Today marked the 78th anniversary of D-Day. For World War II veterans here in the US and locally, they say their memories of the war are still very vivid. You may recall us introducing you to Eureka World War II veteran Wayne Maples. He was honoured as the most recent Humboldt hero just ahead of Memorial Day. Mr. Maples had to receive his parents' approval to enlist since he was only 17 when he chose to join the Navy to fight in World War II. He still proudly wears the hat of the USS Boxer on which he served. Reporter Ivan Lee now takes us to Normandy for today's D-Day anniversary.
Tanks are rolling once again through this small French town to honor the men who fought the Nazis 78 years ago. Just a handful of D-Day veterans returned, now in their 90s. Though their bodies are weak, their pride is just as strong.
I remember some good friends that are lost there. It's a little emotional then.
Back in 1944, an Allied armada floated off Normandy. As troops landed on the beach, metal filled the air. The details of that day are seared into the memory of Raymond Wallace, who was just 18 at the time.
When we started hearing that flak hitting the plane, we all got a little scared then.
The war may seem like a distant memory, but veteran Charles Shea sees similarities in Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
Ukraine is a very sad situation. I feel sorry for the people there.
Shea says today's generation should never forget the lessons of his generation.
They should protect their freedom that they have now.
The greatest generation giving their greatest advice. for a better future. Ian Lee, CBS News.
And remarkable men. And after our final break, Dan Romano's here with a last look at the weather. We'll be right back.
Areas to the north, upper 70s. John Kennedy, over to you.
Thanks, Dan. Now, before we go tonight, it's been a part of McKinleyville since 1968. We're talking about the Pony Express Days celebration. In case you missed it, the annual parade took place as a part of those festivities over the weekend. There were horses, of course, along with floats, antique vehicles and smiling kids along the parade route. That 2-mile route started at Murray and Central Avenue and proceeded down Central Avenue to School Road. These parade images were taken by photographer Lloyd Snyder and are courtesy of our friends at Red-Headed Black Belt. The event gets its name as a result of McKinleyville being located near the final delivery point of the historic Pony Express. Hopefully it wasn't too wet.
No, I think it was actually a pretty nice day for the parade. You know, we didn't see the rain rolling in until close to 3 o'clock. So for a lot of folks that were out there at noon, things were pretty nice.
It looked like it was great fun.
Yep.
Aurora and Erica, sorry, will be here with us for Redwood News Morning. Dan, Max and I'll be back here tomorrow at 5. We look forward to seeing you then.
See you, everybody.